One.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Unschooled. You are here with myself and Lexi. I'm Mandee and Lexi, how are you today?
I am wonderful on this beautiful, finally sunny day. I'm so excited to be here with you ladies.
Awesome. And I'm coming from New Jersey. You're coming from Vermont. And our amazing guest today, Jordan Whinnem, is coming from Texas. Jordan is an incredible, amazing light in our world. And she is marching to the beat of her own soul right now as a mom and an overlander and many, many other things. Jordan, how are you? We're so grateful you're here to be with us today.
Yeah, I am doing so well. Thank you for asking. And I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to converse with you two today and see where this conversation takes us.
Me too. Would you mind starting with just sharing a little bit about yourself, about your adventure right now? Jordan is someone who I was able to meet at an incredible retreat with other amazing sisters. And Jordan's been on this super wonderful adventure because her soul inspired her to, because there were certain things that weren't agreeing with her with medical freedoms and things that she was needing. Her soul was calling her to do some other stuff, and she's going to share so much about that with us. So thanks for being here, Jordan. And if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about you and your adventure, that'd be a great place to start.
Yeah, so I come from the little state of Connecticut up in the Northeast. I was super pregnant when I met you at Omega with my second daughter. So my husband and I have two girls. They're 4 and 6, and they're kind of the light of our lives, obviously, and they're guiding us in a lot of ways on this adventure. So things changed in Connecticut from a medical freedom standpoint about a year and a half ago now. And despite all of our best efforts, there's an amazing community of moms and women that all supported one another through this journey. And once that right was taken away, I made the decision kind of for self-preservation in a way, and for the pursuit of freedom and joy and happiness and comfort to leave the state of Connecticut. So my husband and I we were both kind of wanderers. He graduated from high school, joined the army, lived in Alaska for 7 years and got deployed a bunch of times. So he's seen a lot of the world. In the middle of my college journey, I left and ran away to Switzerland to be an au pair and spent a year in Europe. And so when we came back to Connecticut after my husband got out of the military, we kind of felt like we had to settle down. There was some pressure from family. We bought a house, we settled into our corporate jobs. My husband was in a carpenters union, and we had 2 kids. And I'm so grateful for our time there, but we are not meant to be living in Connecticut, suburbia, the space between Boston and New York. And so we sold everything, which was a wild journey in and of itself, getting rid of all of your worldly belongings and setting up a house to sell. And we bought a tiny little camper. We fixed up the truck that had been broken down in our front yard for 5 years. And we are traveling the United States looking for our forever farm. And we're in Texas right now. We've seen the whole Eastern Seaboard and Florida and Louisiana, and spending the next month and a half in Texas because it's a big state. There's a lot to see here, and pretty excited.
It is just so incredible and so inspiring.
Can I say you're like living my dream right now? My husband and I constantly are going back and forth on whether do we want to buy, or are we like, where's the sign to just pack it up and go travel? So this is like listening to you speak. And I dream too of the farm, the dream of that piece of land that we can be off grid and just self-sustain. Oh, that's a dream.
Yeah, maybe I'm your sign to do it.
Oh, I think this is divine. This is divine and so beautiful and incredible. Let's see. I want to hand the mic over to you for a few. I'm sure you have lots of questions for Jordan. about that.
I do. I want to know this, like how this Outlander, because this is a new term for me, and I really like it. And it's so funny because we just pulled our kids from the school system due to just the chaos, and it was really part of, like, for me, it felt like that time of like, oh my God, taking my power back as a mom. And like, I felt the most mama bear I've ever felt, because it's like, my kids are not going to be this age and stage forever. And I want to be present. And we have been so stressed just trying to survive this, like what we're supposed to be doing, right? Like going to your work, coming home, paying your bills, living in this house, trying to get a bigger car, a bigger this and more that. And it's just so stressful. And it's like no time to really enjoy and be present because you're stressing over survival. And I feel like there's so much more. So I'm curious to see this Outlander term. And I can't wait to hear it, like your journey, how it's been. And our thing is like, how do you make that work? Leaving a regular job to travel. How can we make that happen? Make it so we can work while doing it too, or something. So
yeah, totally. So my husband and I so there's a lot of families now. COVID especially empowered and inspired a lot of families to jump on the road, and a lot of them call themselves full-time RV families. Some of them call themselves nomads, but the term Overlander comes from it's like kind of a subculture, and it's a dude culture primarily, but I resonate with it deeply because there's some principles that my husband and I like to keep in mind. And some of those are, spending 90% of our day outdoors. Every time we can be outdoors, we are outdoors. Our children spend, like, I calculated it last night, we've probably spent at least 300 hours outdoors since the beginning of the year, so the last 61 days. And just really focusing on conservation and treading lightly. And we're ambassadors of Keep Nature Wild, and that do once a month go out and intentionally pick up trash at any park that we're near, right? So there's this feeling with overlanding that you're not just jumping from RV park to RV park, which we do sometimes. We're staying at an RV park right now, but that we can also be out in nature, that we can take back roads whenever we can, that we can boondock, which is like no connection to anything, just out in the wild, right? And so the wilderness and the outdoors just really play a focal point in our pursuit of this journey. And I would say from like a logistics standpoint, there's so much like, how do you do this? How do you accomplish this? And I can tell you that I said this like during our pre-chat, but it's a constant heart opening. It's a constant kind of challenge. And there's definitely been moments where I was in flight or freeze on this path when we were selling our house, and when we were dealing with COVID just last week, actually, in New Orleans. And yeah, it's definitely, it takes a lot of intention to stay present even on the road. But it forces you to stay present. It doesn't give you a choice anymore, right? It's not a choice for me to like run away and hide in a different room for an hour from my children. It's not a choice to send them to school because we're moving every couple of weeks, right? So it really provides me with the like forced empowerment to live my best life, right? Like I don't have a choice but to live my best life here.
That is so juicy and like potent, because that's the energy so many of us are needing right now. And like, I keep talking, and we've talked about this a lot on Unschooled and some of our other shows, but like, it's just this time where we're literally reparenting ourselves. And the only person who's going to make these decisions or make this stuff manifest is you. And it literally comes down to making choices all day, every day, and the energy we want to use with those choices to co-create. So I love that you're bringing light to this, because it's potent and juicy, and where a lot of the magic, I think, happens.
Yeah, thanks.
And I feel like your kids, so I've been like immersed with so many different books right now around, child development and ADHD and like living your best life. And one of the things that it says is the importance of that, these little things, we've gotten so far away from what our children really need to thrive. And we've added so much, and I feel like we've overcomplicated it. And so I love that idea of just that, it's a phase, right? They're only going to be this age for a year, and we only have this time now to be present. For me, I know I grew up with like a family, it's like, oh, that's crazy. So for me, breaking through that stigma and allowing myself to just go for my own inner validation has been one of my biggest awakenings and challenges and obstacles. But I feel like I'm finally in that place of stepping in my power to make that decision and call that shot for my family. Because if you make it sound, it's exactly like it's hard no matter what. Whatever path you choose, it's going to be hard. But it's like following that one that feels the best for you. And I'm sure your girls love it. I'm sure they're in their glory.
Yeah, there's a book called The Last Child in the Woods, and it talks about I think like the subtitle is Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. And so I think there's so much power in allowing them the time to play. I think it's Denmark, where the kids, if they go to school, they're playing all day. There's no real structured learning until the age of about 7. And they're so much further advanced than our kids here in the United States. And actually just recently, the impact of masks has caused the CDC to decrease the focus and the milestones, for speech development and other forms of development, simply because kids have had to wear masks all for the past 2 years, right? And instead of saying, okay, let's fix this, we've noticed this impact, decrease.
Jordan, it's breaking up,
and they're so incredibly smart. And the more we can nurture their wild and like nurture their need to be moving.
Oh, I think it's coming back in.
Here, I'm going to turn off my camera just for a minute.
Yep, now it's coming back. We're hearing you again. And you were saying the more like we nurture their wild.
Yeah, so the more we nurture their wild and let them move and play and discover on their own, the better they learn, the faster they learn, the easier it is for them to zero in on their specific interests, which I have found really beautiful and exciting. And, as an adult that literally just got diagnosed with ADHD last week, I'm realizing that there's still work for me to do as a parent, right? So in order for me to show up as a patient, loving mom who wants to encourage their children to learn instead of like forcing them to sit somewhere for 2 hours on a computer, I have to be the example of also pursuing play and pursuing fun and pursuing explorative learning, right? And so we're all on this journey together, I think, and we're all learning something new about ourselves and about each other every single day. And it's really fascinating how much reconnecting with your core family and reconnecting with nature can shift things. And Lexi, you spoke about how there's kind of these structures and these expectations from our own parents and from our own family members. And to be honest with you, sorry for the barking dog if you can hear it, but to be honest with you, my husband and I still struggle with that every day. I mean, our families love us, but they've also been in Massachusetts and Connecticut since the Mayflower on my side and before the Mayflower on his side.
Oh, so that's some deep energetic lineage there.
Yeah. And so like we come from very deep Puritan roots, right? And we come from people who are comfortable in the space that they grew up in, which is beautiful, but it's also very divinely timed that Jesse and I found one another, because we were both ready to kind of break those chains and, you know, explore the world. So
we are all about breaking multi-generational chains here. That's like what we one of our favorite topics is breaking those generational handed down mindsets and just ways that, you know, there's nothing wrong with them, but is it what resonates with us? And I just feel like that you know, we've kind of gotten away from that freedom of choice and that freedom of, you know, accepting that we're all here for a different experience and we're all here to create our own experience, right? And as a mom with ADD, I was diagnosed not until I was in college, struggling my way through the school I want, like my degree that I wanted so bad at that time. And I was really into Western medicine. I was, you know, going for nursing, and I've kind of gone from Western to woo-woo. But I still have a lot of respect. I have respect for all of it. There's great, but there's, we're not taught about like our energy body, you know what I mean? And our energy, and we're not taught about certain things. And there's things that are so repressed, and then it like leads to all these secondary problems. It manifests into these physical complaints and like anxiety or, you know, depression or stomach, IBS, all these weird things. And it's something as simple as like connecting to our, you know, choosing to be outside more. And it's so funny because, okay, these two books I want to share with you so bad. Hold On to Your Kids by Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld, life-changing. And then Smart Moves, which was actually given to me by Mandee's mom at a divine time, because it talks about how important, like, how kids' brains develop and how movement plays a part in it. And when they are asked to sit still, like there needs to be, especially for kids with ADHD, there needs to be the muscle, there needs to be something moving, because it's muscle memory. It actually helps them process better. So fidgeting is not a bad sign. And I remember getting in trouble all the time for fidgeting in school. Like my kids are going through that too. They're getting in trouble for it. That was part of it. Like, I was like, okay, you know, we're going to create homeschool around each one of them, design like, how do we support this child into being the best version of themselves and learn everything that they need for this crazy world. So these are like some of my books that I've really been using for support on this journey, and I'm so grateful for it, because it talks about, you know, how parents do need to take their power back and how important that relationship and bond is. And what's happened is society has kind of pushed on us this idea that, you know, you need to work 70, 80 hours a week to, you know, that's how you take care of your kids, by providing materialistic things. And some people, that may be what works for them and that may be what they want, but that's not for everybody. And honestly, our kids just want our time and our attention and that relationship and bond, and it's so beneficial. So and they say like a kid can't sit for more than, if you have ADHD, to not do anything for more than 45 minutes, because it will cause burnout. So it's actually harmful to make a child with ADD or ADHD sit for longer than 45 minutes. And they say to make them go outside in between lessons, or, you know, to get fresh air and movement. So the professionals, like, there's proof there. There's proof that the kids need to be outside, and that school is actually harmful to our kids' development. And then all they care about are these test scores. And, you know, don't even get me started on testing. I feel like testing is not a good way to show anybody's, you know, where they're at in life.
Oh, I love all of this. And I just want to say too, just for adults, like Dr. Northrup says that sitting is the new smoking, and like we need to get up and move every hour. And I feel that if I'm at Zoom with a client for an hour, then okay, I got to get up and do a dance break, go for a little walk, something. Jordan, I'm sure you have lots to say.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I was also thinking about, Mandee, is that as adults, I think with this world of technology, which I'm so grateful for, that I can connect to people all over the place, right? Also comes the repercussions of sitting for a long period of time, of being so zoomed in, tunnel vision to our computers and our phones, that we miss all of the beauty and magic happening out around us and outside of ourselves, right? You know, one of the things that's great about having a camper is we don't have a TV anymore. So if my husband and I want to watch something, or if we want to let the kids watch a movie, they're really into Harry Potter right now. And so they're still like in the magic space. But
Harry Potter is like everybody's safe space.
It's the best. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. And it's like, we have to be intentional about it though, right? We have to actually hand them the computer or turn on the computer and put the movie on. And what we've noticed is that for a little while there, because we didn't have TV, we were picking up our phones more often. And so my husband and I have been really trying to call each other out and like put our phones down, right? And put away the technology. So it's definitely, it's not perfect yet, but we're working on it. And, you know, I think to your point, Lexi, not too long ago, there weren't that many chemicals in our food, and foods were still nutrient dense, and we weren't eating processed foods all the time. So that's one piece of it. But the second piece of it is that we were spending more time outside, right? Kids were helping out their parents at work and on the farm, and they were spending more time outdoors during the learning period because it was a one-room schoolhouse, and it's just a couple hundred years ago, right? And I think because kids have to sit in a classroom all day, because they often have to sit in front of a computer all day, I actually think that the combination of nutrition and lack of connection to nature and one another is actually contributes to the cause of ADHD, right? So I mentioned this, like once we land on the farm, I know for sure that I'm actually not going to have any struggles with my ADHD, because I'm going to be living on purpose. I'm going to be living outdoors. I'm going to be moving my body and pursuing something that is of service and makes the world a better place. Right now, my only real option is remote work and, you know, looking at my computer a lot. And so, you know, exploring what tools can I utilize now to kind of get through this period in my life where I don't have a choice but to sustain our family finances by utilizing the computer. And I think it's okay for us to go through different parts of our journey utilizing different tools, but also just the fact that I already know that when I get to be outside farming and when I see my kids playing, I'm more comfortable with my ability to accomplish things, and my kids are more likely to experience success and a feeling of fulfillment with themselves because they're doing what they love to do.
Absolutely. That feeling of being in alignment and knowing, like, it's so nice because you like have this light at the end of the tunnel. You're like, I've gotten to know myself a little bit, and I was never officially diagnosed with it, but I've always like been like, yeah, I have straight up like high functioning anxiety and like adult ADD. And I'm like, and I can do all these things all at once, but it's not serving me. And it's not creating peace within my vessel. I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I got really good. Actually, at the retreat I was with you, it was Rebecca Campbell Rise Sister Rise retreat at Omega. There was a soul inquiry question that was like, what have you gotten really good at doing that you actually don't like doing? And I was like, oh my God, my whole life. Wow. Fuck. Okay. I've got some serious like shit to do here and some rearranging to do and learning how to be peace. And for a whole year, my whole mantra was I am peace. Cause I'm like, I have to learn how to, like, I want to learn how to embody this energy. I want to know what that would feel like in my vessel, because I haven't allowed myself to experience that. And none of us stood a chance. You know, we've all been kind of programmed into this society, into this dream, into this sense of doing. And in order to be loved or accepted or accomplished in our society, we had to, you know, check off all these boxes and do all these things, even if it didn't feel like the right thing for our soul. So I took a big step back and I decided to start making choices based on what my heart wants most, not what other people think or might think, and trust that it's for the highest good of everyone and everything, especially if it's coming from an integral place. So it's not an easy thing, but man, are you doing it and you're allowing yourself to. So what are some of the tools that you're going to be using or you want to use to help manage this in between chapter here while you're getting to your forever farm?
Yeah. So definitely putting together, I'm a Virgo, so I like organization, structure. So putting some structure to my day has been really powerful. Most mornings, and before I jump to that, I'm giving myself grace and flexibility, which I haven't in the past. So acknowledging that not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day is going to be productive. Not every 3-hour drive is going to be 3 hours. They could be 5, right? Like just really learning to feel comfortable with pivoting and things not going the way you expect. But definitely moving my body. So I start every morning with the 5 Tibetan rites, which kind of like gets your chakras in alignment. It's challenging physically for me. I don't know what that says about my strength, but that starting the day off with a challenge is really helpful. And then sitting in silence and, setting intentions and expressing some gratitude. I've had a lot of moments where I'm like just listening to the birds sing and watching the sunrise, and a bird will just like come up and sit next to me for a moment, right? And just like those moments of God source energy showing up and saying like, I got you today, boo, right? Like you've got this. And then morning, pre-breakfast and post-dinner afternoon walks with the family. So we take our dog out and we walk, just 1 to 2 miles, but it's simple, it's intentional, it's together, we're laughing and playing. My kids really like to stop and explore things and pick up crystals for me. I have like an epic rock collection now. And yeah, and presence. But grace is definitely a big role in that. And also with that grace, acknowledging that Western medicine might help me at this stage of my life right now, right? So, and looking at, what natural tools can I combine with that to offset any of the negative impacts it might have on my physical body. I've struggled deeply in my life with autoimmune disease, which was another big trigger for taking this adventure. I've spent weeks in bed just like trying to get through work and really learning to love my body, like love on my body, and like remind myself and remind my body that like I have the power to heal, that actually nothing can hurt me unless I choose to let it hurt me. And really the power of that, the power of saying I can accept help if I want to accept help, and I should accept help when I feel like I need it. And also I'm a strong bitch and my body represents that. And no matter what happens, I can get through it, right? I mentioned that we dealt with COVID over the past couple of weeks, and the first night of really bad symptoms, I was like begging for death. I was like, this is the worst pain. It was the worst flare up, and it was instant, right? And but I also was like, okay, like God help me, like just get me through this. And it manifested in some really interesting ways. My ears were popping constantly for 2 weeks. I did lose my smell. It's still like kind of gone, but it's coming back. But I didn't have any respiratory issues. And I really contribute that to, I did breath work every day because I knew that I needed to protect my lungs. Didn't really know that I needed to protect my eardrum, so I guess I didn't prepare well for that. But I never had any respiratory issues.
That's how this works, right? Every time we get through something like this, we're like, oh, next time I'll do that.
Yeah, exactly. And just acknowledging like our own healing abilities, and making sure that I still got outside no matter how tired I was, getting under the sunshine. And I'm going through the root cause protocol right now. So I'm kind of like anti-supplemental vitamin D supplementation. And so just actually getting out under the sun, like really putting my bare feet on the ground, right? I think all of that contributes to healing COVID, but I also think that COVID was the biggest blessing so far in this trip because it really ripped us all open. we were all tired. We were all in a small space together. We couldn't go out and have adventures in New Orleans, right? Like we really had to embrace the suck and just like push through it. But at the end of the tunnel is like a really beautiful renewal of my marriage with my husband, is a really beautiful acknowledgement of how amazing our bodies are, is a great opportunity for me to spend a little extra time with the kids. And I've had the time to reach out to a doctor and get diagnosed with ADHD. And like all of a sudden at the end of this really painful path are a lot of fucking great answers and really beautiful blessings.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I do want to acknowledge too, I love that you're talking about the bridge that we can use and the tools we can use between Eastern and Western medicine. And we're always talking about what kind of tools work for you, what might serve you at this time. I try the same thing. I try to be as holistic as possible, to not take over-the-counter things. Every now and then, if I need an antibiotic, I'm going to take one. I get crazy gout attacks and I'm not on regular medicine for that at all. I do celery juice every day. Every now and then, still, because I had it for so long, I'll have a flare up and it's not fun. And I'm really grateful I can take some Aleve or some naproxen to help with that for a little bit. And the same thing with our mental health. Sometimes, like if you break your arm, or if you break your leg, there's certain things you're going to take for a little while that are going to help you to heal. And are you going to be on it forever and ever? Probably not. Are you going to need to do some strengthening and go to physical therapy? Probably. And so the same thing can happen with our mental health as well. And we don't like to acknowledge that as much. It's like, we got to be on one side or the other. Why can't we build a bridge? So thank you for acknowledging that. Lex, did you have, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I think that's the power of choice, right? Is like, if you stray too far away from Western medicine, like you're going to get an infection in your leg and die. Right. But like, if you break your leg, but if you stray too far to Western medicine, we lose sight of our own healing abilities and spiritual path, which is just as dangerous as an infection in your leg, in my humble opinion. So yeah, just the balance and the acceptance of no matter where you are, you're right where you need to be.
Oh, amen to all of that. I love it so much. And I feel like that's one thing that we're not taught in life, is like the balance, right? And it's a dance. It's not a destination. It's a dance that you have to learn to do on your journey with things coming at you. And I kind of feel like we're not really teaching our kids that. So that was part of, for me with the homeschooling, was like, okay, we're going to learn how to just learn about ourselves. And, I get to be in control of like what they learn and do it with them, and, enjoy this process and time together. So I love that you're doing that. And you're, how you just said about, you embrace the suck. I tell my kids all the time, there's always a positive. It may seem like a bad situation, but there's always a good lesson in there. There's always what was it that I said, Mandee? I said, that there's like a present after the pain or something along those lines, but there is. So it's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. And I think too that, just for myself, at least, I pleased my parents with my intellectual abilities, right? I was a straight B student, but I could have been an A student probably if I had the tools to like really thrive and learn the way that I was meant to learn. But I found myself still caught in that pattern sometimes, where right now my 6-year-old, I get really stressed out that she's not reading as fast as I like, learning to read as fast as I think she could read. And it's not because I am afraid of her falling behind her peers, but I just know what worlds open up when you've learned to read. But I find myself kind of mirroring some of the things that I heard as a child, and the most powerful thing that I think we can do as parents is acknowledge that those moments are going to happen sometimes, but also acknowledge those moments when they happen, right? We are always going to mirror where we came from. Like that's part of our journey, but it's our acknowledgement of it and our willingness to shift that mindset for the sake of our relationship with our children and for the sake of our children that I think is super powerful. It's small, simple choices like that.
Oh, that is so true and so beautifully put. I love that. And, you know, it's teaching my kids that, you know, people can only see you in the light that they can see themselves. This whole mirroring thing, it's so interesting because I do the same thing with my kids. And that was one of the things my kids have helped me work on myself and do like my own shadow work, because I will see them picking up some bad habits and I'll see that reflection. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, where did this come from? And just doing that work and, you know, having those conversations with my kids too. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I just snapped at you and I didn't even realize, you know what I mean? And apologizing and showing them what it looks like to apologize or to work through a challenge or your not finest moment, you know, because we're all human. We're not going to be perfect all of the time. And I saw my 7-year-old the other day. He goes, okay, I'm sorry. I need to take a minute to calm down and I'll redo that. And I was so proud. I was like, oh, he caught himself in the middle of getting mad at his sister. Like, yes, you know, like, yeah, go take that time. Go do it. Like, you know, just, it was so great to see them start picking up some of the good things.
Yeah. I mean, my husband and I probably have to apologize to each other and our kids like a million times a day. Again, like everything's amplified in the small space that we're taking up. And it's been fascinating for me too, because one of my daughters, my youngest one, is so different from me. She's like, and my husband, she is just a woman about town, an amazing extrovert. She's constantly just in her own world, putting on performances, singing songs, introducing herself to people. And it gives me a little anxiety. And I realized that my husband and I are in marriage counseling, just like because it's good for you. And I said that to the therapist once. I was like, you know, I think Jesse was probably like that when he was a kid, and his parents kind of like shushed that in him. And so I don't want to, as much anxiety as it gives me, I don't want to like push that down in Josie. But then I realized that I was actually like that as a kid. I would take my neighbors in our condos that we lived in on tours to show them all of the healing plants and like all of these herbalism like stuff, like, oh, this can stop bleeding, and all of these. I totally made it up. Or I think now as an adult, I think there might have been some ancestral wisdom there, to be honest. But
remembering going on.
Yeah, like, but I was in love with theater. I was always singing and dancing. I wanted to bring joy to the world. And I don't know where in my life that got stomped out. I have some theories, but
oh boy, yeah.
Right. Like realizing that my introversion as an adult is actually learned behavior for what was accepted of me as a child. And I mean, I think my kids are my greatest teacher and like my greatest like opportunity for me to reflect on who I really am again. Like I lost myself somewhere along the way, and spending 24/7 with them is the best opportunity for me to realize who I am again.
I love that so much, because it resonates so deeply, because I say that my kids are my biggest, they're the best teacher for me. I feel like I learned so much from them, and in this experience of being there, just this family experience. And it's one of those things where I now reflect back and I see, and that we snuff out a kid's life. it was like you were to be seen and not heard. You weren't to talk unless, you were spoken to. There's these like old, like handed down mindsets for children for so many years. And my nickname was Giggles, Motor Mouth. I was twirling, dancing, could not sit still, just, all over the place. And I realized, I got snuffed out, and there was a lot of my anxiety and my depression through that repression of my true, authentic self. I'm a happy or was a happy person. So when I was depressed and going through my depression, I was like, I was always a happy kid. Like, nobody understood why I was depressed because I was such a happy kid and all this stuff, and why I was going through the struggles that I was. I was like, well, a lot of it was because I was told to be quiet, sit still, simmer down, calm down, don't be you, and that's, you don't realize. So now being aware of that with my kids and how okay, it's very loud and rambunctious. Thank God for this smart moves, because to know that like kids they need certain play, they need certain, that rough and tumble play is beneficial to kids, because we forget what it's just a thing the other day about how it was like to try and embrace your inner child, right? And like let her come out and play and be that kid again. And thank God to have the kids and be able to have those moments where I can just get fully immersed and remember what it's like to be a kid and get down on the floor and play or get muddy or explore outside. And man, I always feel so much better. I always feel like that's the best medicine to anything that I have going on personally.
Yeah, it's funny. I until very recently, I think probably in the past 3 weeks, taking the time to play with my kids was, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be present. I couldn't participate in it. I was a witness to it and laughing next to them, but I wasn't actually really participating. And I've found myself on this trip starting to embrace that a little more naturally. I think I'm just like getting more comfortable with it. And the positive impact on my mental health is profound. I mean, it is incredible what being goofy and making silly faces and doing a silly dance and sitting on the ground can do for you. Like it blows my mind, the simplicity of some of these healing tools we have accessible to us, right? I mean, Mandee, you're so lucky you get to live by the beach, right? And I think that the power, even if you're wearing shoes, you have to feel always like there's this moment available to us at the beach that like you just always want to play there. And I think that that's the best. And realizing that for me, I don't have to be at the beach for that to happen, right? I can be anywhere and make it happen has been great, but that's why I kind of envy you and your beach.
I'm grateful. I think I tallied it up. I think I live in my 33 or 34th house right now, technically, in all my moves, but
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've been lucky too. This is the house I live in now, is my grandmother's house, and I'm back here helping her. And I was reflecting so much about like how people do lose time at the beach, and it's so rare people let themselves go barefoot, like you were saying, and actually let themselves ground. And I have a backyard garden. That was my COVID project. And I am like, when it's warm out, I am in bare feet all day. I'm out back earthing, and then I'm like out over at the beach. And even I found myself too, I've noticed that wintertime, it's been harder to not want to go with the technology or into my phone or looking for that other connection. Because in the summertime, I can't get enough of my own self. I'm running around like, oh my God, look at this plant growing. And I can't wait to like walk on the beach and look at these birds fly by. But it's harder to get out there and to connect in the wintertime. And I think it's something a lot of people struggle with all the time as it is. But there's so many things that you can do. I would love, Jordan, if you would just share with us a little bit about your vitamin D journey and why you're soaking it up from the sun right now.
Oh man, so autoimmune disease has provided me with like 10,000 different things from like a nutritional standpoint and supplemental standpoint. The foundation of my health issues is obviously, not obviously, but it's childhood trauma, and definitely some ancestral things. The mother wound, it plays an incredible role in inflammation and pain. And so healing that obviously is kind of a foundational piece. But I have probably spent, I mean, tens of thousands of dollars on different doctors and supplements and trying to accomplish what our bodies actually can accomplish anyway. And so what I found through all of my dietary shifts and stuff is I was vegan for a while. That made my autoimmune disease way worse. And then I was going through fasting, which I think is beneficial to a certain extent, but I was fasting too much and like undid all of my metabolism and hormonal work, right? And so Root Cause Protocol is based on the teachings of Weston A. Price. He's really popular. He's the bomb. I learned about him through Polyface Farm, which is Joel Salatin, who talks about a lot about regenerative farming. And basically, the thought process of the Root Cause Protocol is that we actually have a mineral and a magnesium, specifically magnesium deficiency for the most part. And magnesium is the regulator of so much in our body. And vitamin D is actually not a vitamin, but it's a hormone. And so magnesium, with its regulatory abilities, helps us absorb vitamin D, and it's most absorbable through the sun. And so by overcompensating with vitamin D, it's getting into our system, messing up our hormones, but we're not actually absorbing it because we have a mineral deficiency. And so it's really fascinating. The Root Cause Protocol, the whole handbook is free. And so you can download it, but it essentially says, you know, take some magnesium, maybe take some cod liver oil, take trace minerals, but drop all of the other stuff. With that being said, I take adrenal support just because I do have a lot of cortisol and adrenal issues that, you know, have existed since I was a tiny child. And
that are still quieting and softening because they were there a long time.
yeah. And so like it's a journey. And then I can't get myself to eat beef liver, so I take a liver capsule. But for the most part, I've cut out most supplements, and I've cut it out for my kids, and I'm supplementing them with magnesium and trace minerals. There's a lot of power in vitamin C as well in our ability to absorb stuff. So we're trying to do that food-based, right? For a long time, I was so scared of orange juice. Like I couldn't eat fruit. I couldn't drink orange juice. That was wild to me. That was crazy to me. Like, oh my God, my blood sugar is going to spike. But it's also an incredible.
No fruit allowed in our generation.
Yeah.
It was
like,
naughty.
It's such an incredible, like I would argue that you should eat meat and fruit and not that many vegetables. Like all of this stuff that I'm learning is like, okay, what does my body want? And my body wants fruit, and it wants like a big juicy burger. Like those are the two things, right? I've reintroduced dairy into my life, which was like a big no-no for a long time. I just wasn't eating quality dairy. And it really is about quality, and it's about, you know, finding local stuff when you can. And there's this thing called Harvest Host that we do a lot on our journey. And it's like you can stay at a farm for free. And a lot of those farms are organic, pasture raised, regenerative. And so we get local meats wherever we are. And we have access to view the animals and making sure that they're raised in like a really beautiful, free manner, right? Because I think there's also an energy behind meat eating, which is what originally turned me to veganism. That's like, the animal really suffers when it's getting raised in a barn, and it suffers at its death. And so how can we still eat ancestrally? How can we eat like our very healthy ancestors ate, while making sure that we're honoring the animal and expressing gratitude for the nutrients it's providing us, right? How can we make sure we give it the most beautiful life? And this is kind of an offshoot story, but I think it's actually an important one. God's telling me right now to share. And so we did a harvest hose at the beginning of our path in North Carolina. And like I mentioned, I really want to be a farmer. Cattle specifically is kind of my new passion. The woman, Karen, who owns the farm, has just been a beautiful source of education for my husband and I. And after knowing us for just like 2 days, she said, hey, can you guys farm sit for us? They have over like 250 head of cattle. And we, after Christmas, beelined it down to North Carolina and watched the farm for 5 days. And babies were born while we were there. It was unseasonably cold. My children got to, and I say they got to because it really is a beautiful, it's sad, but a really important experience. They witnessed a calf passing away because its mom just didn't produce enough milk. There were some nutrient deficiencies. The farm is working to shift to like only pasture raised, like no grass finishing, no supplemental feed. And that takes a couple of generations for the cows to really build up the ability to live that way and thrive that way. But there was another calf that was being bottle fed that didn't have a mom and desperately wanted a mom. Any time a heifer came by, this cow just went up to it, was like, please, like, be my mom, let me nurse off of you, right? And it was painful and sad. And so the mother grieving deeply, loudly, and it was painful and sad and challenging. But then you guys hear me? I've paused.
You broke up a tiny bit and then you came back. You're good.
Yeah.
We're hearing the story and now we're on the cliffhanger with you.
Sorry, yeah, cliffhanger.
No, you're good.
So the mom's grieving, and Karen kind of had walked me through how to graft a calf because she anticipated this maybe happening. And so I had to not just kind of witness the death of a small animal, but I had to, this might trigger warning, guys, this is like a hard story to tell, but
thanks for the trigger warning. Triggers are allowed here.
Yeah. So I skinned the calf that had passed away, and I placed the hide in like it was a really spiritual experience for me. I placed the hide on the orphaned cow, and it took a while. It was really hard, but the mom of the calf that passed away accepted the orphaned cow as her own because it smelled like her calf. And so for me to kind of witness that in nature and see the power of what we can do as humans to create a better life for these animals, even if at the end they are sustaining us, it's just really beautiful. And like, that's where my passion for regenerative agriculture comes from, is our ability to feed the earth. And because that calf that passed is still going to feed the earth, right? Feed the earth and feed the soil and care for every living creature as they will care for us, right? And so just an incredible spiritual experience. And another thing that's been magical about this journey is the opportunities we have to learn and the people we get to meet.
How amazing. Thank you, number one, for following your intuition, your own mother's intuition, your own human intuition, for being open to learning and experiencing something new. For me, doing the vegan thing, it did help me heal me for a while. It helped like even some things out. I still do celery juice every morning. There's certain things, but same thing. I started to crave after a while quality meat. And for me, it was this thing where I would start to have kind of, I guess, psychic flashes, if you will, of when I was eating meat, of like how the animal died and the suffering. And I was getting really attached to that. And, I have skinned animals. I took a primitive survival skills class in college, and I've got like an outdoor adventure education. I love all that stuff. So like, yeah, I love that shit because I'm very like connected to the ocean, of course, and the earth as well. And I make this joke often that I'm like, it's hard, but like a lot of the vegans don't really like to hear it, but we really need the cows and we really need the earth to make this whole thing go around. And it's cyclical and it's about giving gratitude. And I say this over and over. I'm like, I don't care if you're eating a salad and you're like, thanks, salad, so much for growing your whole life so that I can have this nourishment, this one meal. And the same thing, especially with our animals. And like, that is the major disruption that so many people are having a hard time with. And if we just do what you do, bite the bullet. I call it rip off the Band-Aid a lot and say, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to learn and be of service and let's see what could happen. And look at this incredible God moment that you had because of that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's so funny because Joe Rogan talks about this sometimes when he's making jokes about vegans, but like plants, like if you talk to a plant, they're going to grow better. Like if you spend time in gratitude with your fucking vegetables, like they will grow so much more abundantly, right? And so just because something doesn't have like a brain or a heart, right? I mean, lettuce has hearts, right? But like just because it's not moving and like clearly interacting with you doesn't mean that it doesn't have a certain level of energy and responsiveness. And so I your salad to every single thing around us, the more we're going to reap the benefits. Oh, can you hear me now?
Now again, yep, broke up a little bit. Now you're back.
I was the more gratitude we express to everything around us, like the more we're going to reap the benefits of this really crazy life we are experiencing.
Absolutely. Lexi, I know you have so much to share.
Oh, I just love that because I've been on that journey with the whole, food thing and the diet, and my kids love meat, but we've had chickens. They want farm animals. My kids, I have farm boys. I have country boys that just want to be outside and every chance they get. And then they love to grill. They love meat. And we're so fortunate where we live. We have some great local farms and butchers and local. I'm so for local. It's not even funny. And I feel like being able to go and see and like knowing that like people are mindfully farming, right? Mindfully creating this beautiful space, a sacred space for our ancestors in ways too. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I do think we need meat sometimes. There's some great things about it. I've heard multiple people now say about it. Like you just said with what you had, that, meat actually, Michaela, is it Michaela Peterson? Is that the girl who talks about how she went from vegan to like a meat diet and it healed her autoimmune? So it's one of those things where it's such a beautiful thing. It's a process of life and learning. You know what I mean? The kind of the circle of life. And when you're talking about plants and the brain, I just learned, I think the brain of the plants is Mother Earth herself, knowing how that intricate web and the connection of the underground, how it all, lets each other know, and how it's like our mushrooms are all this amazing, just like plant medicine and gifts from Mother Earth herself are right here at our fingertips. So that's like been part of our big thing we're so excited about. We're homeschooling. We're working on, okay, what are we going to do for our garden? Like, this is the year. Like, how do we make this a part of our homeschooling curriculum, building this garden together and learning to, even following some homesteaded families, because we want to try and jar and can and preserve and, create that sustainable, family unit in life.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's a documentary from 2019 called Fantastic Fungi, and it was created by Paul Stamets, who's like the most amazing mushroom dude on the whole planet. And the fact that underneath our feet is an entire network of fungi talking to each other and interacting with each other and acting as the internet for nature, right? Like, I believe in his study, if one tree was sick, it would send a message through this like fungi network, and other trees would send nutrients through that network to the sick tree, right? Like, we are limiting our own brains by denying the incredible intelligence of these trees that are like older than us, right? Of this fungus that exists whether we exist or not, right? What do our bodies become when we're done? We don't become another human. Like, our physical bodies become the wise old fungus that's keeping our planet alive. You know, it's an up level, if you ask me, right, from a physical experience. And yeah, it's so cool to witness it every day. Like, that's all I want. I just want to bathe in the magic of nature and the earth every fucking day.
Oh, I love that. I hope you guys come to Vermont, because when you guys come to Vermont, you can come stay with us. And oh my gosh, yes, that's the documentary too that I watched that blew my mind. And now there's so many more too. I love the one on earthing, because I didn't even realize earthing, like the science behind it and the benefits. And that one blew my mind too.
Yeah, I wear these shoes. They're called Bedrocks. Hold on, I'm just gonna share these with you. They're not earthing shoes, but they are flat shoes that, like, they're kind of barefoot shoes. And essentially the bones in my feet, because I've been wearing them every day, have totally changed. And my posture and my like physical appearance and the way I'm using my muscles is completely different. Like, we were meant to be barefoot. Like, you know, today's shoes are wrecking us.
I will validate that and vouch for you, because when I met you, I was in a walking boot and I was on crutches.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
On and off crutches, and like blew up both my feet and ankles forever, for like a decade. Wasn't until I started working with another one of our friends, Holly Joy McCabe, and she was like, yeah, you got to go minimal. You got to start doing barefoot. It's like, that's what's better, and it's going to heal your stuff. And it might hurt right now, but like, suck it up, buttercup. You got this. And I was like, sure do. And if you guys know Holly, that's how she is, which is awesome, and what I needed in that moment. And going barefoot healed my feet. I dance now. I snowboard again. I'm not running quite yet, but I probably could if I really wanted to. It's just amazing. I'm walking in sand. I'm doing things that I never thought my feet could handle, and that they told me, the hires that be in our, our lovely medical system, we're like, oh no, that's it. Like, you're done. You're never going to heal. You're going to need orthotics for the rest of your life, and all kinds of stuff. And I just said no. I started walking around barefoot, and it's amazing how your body will remember and things will come back to life. It's fascinating. So thank you for sharing light on that.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny. Like I said before, the simplicity of a lot of the answers we're looking for, right? It's right there. If we take a moment to ask for help and ask for a sign, whether from a person or God's spirit source, like, the answer's there, and it's probably not expensive, and it's probably a lot easier than you thought it would be.
Yes. 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 Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time to come and to share your light and your story and your message. We appreciate all of the topics that you brought up today, because it was just incredible. How can people follow your journey? Can they get a hold of you if they're wanting? And if so, how?
Yeah. So first off, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for, chatting. It's just been an incredible pleasure to connect with you too. And my daughter's not napping, so I don't know if you can hear her in the background.
That is
but
okay.
I would say you can find me at jordanwhinnem.com, JORDANWHI, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, E, M as in Mary. That's where I have a lot of my personal journey. That's where I share my autoimmune stuff. And then RTOoverland.com is our website. And follow me on Instagram, though. That's where I'm most active. That's where you'll see the most content. And that's at Jordan Whinnem.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Lexi, do you have any closing thoughts or questions or anything to share?
How divine and such an honor today to have you. I am hopefully this is the first of many conversations with you, because I feel like there's so many great topics that we could be getting into. So thank you so much for such a great conversation today, and inspiration and just permission to follow your heart, and for being that I say that the change that we need is going to start within each one of us, and you guys are doing it. So high five, round of applause. It's an honor to get to talk to you today, because you're inspiring me, and hopefully many others will hear this and feel that inspiration too. So thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank
And if you have made it to the end of this conversation, please give us a like, a share, a follow. SeaGoddessHealingArts.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, lots more conversations and content coming your way. Thank you again, Lexi and Jordan, for holding this space. It's just been beautiful. Take care,
Thank
listeners.
you.